Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Vinny's Corner this week with my special guest host, Mike. What's going on, Mike? Say hello.
Hello.
All right, guys, this is another week of Vinny's Corner, and as you guys know, we are going to be jumping right into NFL Week 2. But first, let's cut to our intro. Oops, didn't start.
Purdue as Mitchell looks for an answer.
Ooh. Pure, nothing but net.
Garland to the basket, stole the inbound pass. He lays it in.
Basketball down there.
Very high percentage shot for him from that spot. Merrill for three.
Tristan Thompson on the floor.
Diaz for three. That's short. Hard rebound. Ricochets out to Merrill for three again.
For the We Like Sports Show, tune in and see the latest the crew has to say regarding the latest sports topics nationally and locally. Make sure to check out our website as well, WeLikeSportsPC.com. Subscribe on all platforms, including podcast platforms, YouTube, TikTok, and much more. And be sure to follow us on X at WeLikeSportsPC.
Started with Anderson and Ramirez.
He said, let's go, right? Yeah, I'm sure he wants the game to start, but they won't let it. And rightfully so.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to Vinny's Corner on the We Like Sports Network. Again, this is my guest host for today, Mike. As you can see, we have the best haircuts in town. And this week, the big concern, I guess what everybody's talking about, it's that time of year again, folks. It's NFL season. Week 2 just finished. As you guys can see, I'm wearing a Raiders shirt, probably the biggest upset, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. So we do have some questions that are going to kind of dialogue, how this conversation goes today as we kind of jump into what went on this past week, injuries, upsets, best looking teams, who's the power ranking right now, and, just what's going on in the NFL. So we're going to jump right into it. And I want to thank my co-host because I'll be honest, these are some great questions and he did create them, not me, So one of the big things actually that we just kind of touched on, and I think that everybody's been talking about the last couple of days is what team has really impressed you so far, going into week 3. Is there like a specific AFC or NFC team that stands out to you? And I'll turn it over to Mike if you want to jump in first, brother.
I'd say New Orleans.
New Orleans, and I like
they really surprised me because I wasn't expecting 100 points out of 2 games out of this team. I really wasn't.
I mean, if you talk to a lot of people coming into this season, the 2 biggest comments were Derek Carr, like, what are we going to do with this guy?
Yeah.
Right. Coaching, or 3 biggest comments, coaching, question mark, and Alvin Kamara. Is he washed? Mm-hmm. I think we've got a lot of big answers in the first 2 weeks, now we're going to see the
Cowboys in that second half. It was not the second half, the second quarter. Kamara just lit it up.
To think that somebody and the Cowboys are generally looked at as one of the better defenses in the league, led by Micah Parsons, right? They've got a bunch of studs on that team. The offense is a high-flying offense, too, in the regular season at least. Yeah. But, I mean, the numbers just don't lie. What was that, 35 points and a half?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally, I believe they set a record, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, it speaks volumes, though, because they had Allen there last season, and that really wasn't working out for the coaching. But look at this. They changed up coaching, right? They have the same people, the same 2 players behind that line, Alvin and Derek. And just what's going on? all of a sudden, it looks like they've got a tier 1 running back there again. And it looks like they have a quarterback who knows how to do more than manage a game. He knows how to win a game, you know, and as a guy wearing a Raiders shirt, you know, for me, it's pretty easy to say that I don't think we saw that, you know, we didn't believe that was possible, but was it just the coaching that he was in at the time? You know, so I think that's a really good one. And I fully agree with you on that. They were one of the biggest surprises for me. Definitely right now, I would say that they're like 1 or 2 in the NFC. To me, the 2 best that I've seen playing are them and Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. You know, I think they've looked pretty awesome too so far. So for me, those are probably the 2 biggest surprises out of the NFC. Do you have an AFC team that's kind of been a big surprise for you as well?
Chargers, because definitely that's night to day from last year.
And I think we all know what to say about that, right? Harbaugh is there. I mean, they finally went out and got themselves a legit coach. And, I mean, the sky's the limit for that.
He took away their whole YR, got a whole new YR. Like, he took over the Chargers and made them into a threat.
Well, you know, and it looks like watching Herbert, you know, and I think that was one of the bigger things was like, who's this guy's quarterback coach? Who's really helping develop this guy? But we saw how excited Harbaugh was coming into the Chargers to have that guy as his quarterback. Yeah. And it looks like they did nothing but put work into him all season. And he looks great, you know? So I can agree to that one. And on the negative side of it, I would say that probably the Ravens have been they've been a shockingly bad team to me this season so far.
I wouldn't say shockingly. Now, I put the Lakers when I was talking this the other day with somebody else. I said it's just like the Lakers. You put too much talent on that roster, it's a distraction to the entire organization.
You know, I can agree to that. It doesn't look like first, Derek is getting older. He's in great shape, but he's not the Derrick Henry of 2-3 years ago by any means, you know? But when you have that guy in the backfield and you spent that money and you went out and got him, you want to keep the ball in his hands when you can, but you've got Lamar running around too.
You got a mobile quarterback. You don't have a running back with a mobile quarterback. You just don't. You know,
I feel like they needed you didn't need that level of a running back for that team. I feel like that team needed like a Devin Singletary, like a solid guy, like a 4 yards average carry kind of guy. Not amazing.
J.K. Dobbins left, and he's killing it in the Chargers. It's like, so you had that guy.
And, you know, Dobbins, that's a fact. It's actually, you know, he's been a pleasure to watch so far this year. But, yeah, the Ravens have definitely been – and I can understand saying it's not that much of a surprise, but I don't know. I'll be honest, as a Raiders fan, in my heart, I was like, we can beat this team. Yeah. I know we can beat this team, but you're still welcoming in the Ravens. And so I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. But, you know, those are our first couple of surprise teams that we've looked at so far in the NFL going through week 2. Now, one of the big things I think that kind of came out of week 2 before we kind of jump down into too many questions is injuries. What's going on in the NFL with all these injuries now? You know, like is it that there are not too many guys holding out a training camp, too many people not getting the burn they need before season? Like, we're just seeing so many injuries so early in the season. What would you attribute that to, Mike?
I would say, as a former athlete, I'd say it has to do with the changes in the game. That's a huge impact. Now, I'm going to use baseball, for example. They took the pitch clock and dropped it down to 15 seconds. We watched 5 top-tier pitchers go out in the first 2 weeks because they dropped 5 seconds. I love how they make the advancements in sports, but it's taking away the integrity of the game, and it's also changing how we play the game. And guys aren't just prepared for that yet. The younger crowd is, because they've been brought up on it, but the old veterans, they're not used to this quick run game that the young crowd is running. So it's putting a weight on their bodies. And as men, we got egos. If you got a young 20-year-old kid coming in pumping 435, that old 38-year-old is going to do the same damn thing, and he's going to blow at his shoulder because he has to compete for that position.
So, well, that's definitely a part of it too. You touched on age. Players are just playing longer now too, right? I mean,
that's the benefit.
There was a time when a running back was like a 5-year job because they were just taking such a pounding. Now these guys are trying to run the ball for 10 years, 12 years, and that's a lot.
Because it's management. We're going pass, run. Used to just run. Now it's pass, run, pass option. Like Peyton Manning was talking the other day. The RPO now, he goes, that didn't exist. It was either the R or the P. There wasn't the RPO. And the RPO is changing the game.
Okay. I like that. You know what? You do raise a good point. And honestly, watching, so do you watch the Manning cast when you watch Monday Night Football? It's the only way to watch Monday Night Football now, right?
Oh, wait, there you go. There's the Peyton name. My youngest is Peyton.
That's awesome. Is he named after Peyton Manning? That's pretty awesome. So kind of, now that you said that, I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't know if you've ever watched the show Game of Thrones, but my daughter's middle name is Sansa, and her godfather calls her the Queen of the North. Real shit.
Yeah, it works, right?
But hey, listen, you got to go what you got to go to. All right, cool. So let's just continue on and look at some more of these questions that we got. And folks, anyone out there listening, if you guys have any questions, anything you're thinking about week 2, whether it's the fantasy side of things or the actual play side of things, and you just want to hear our opinion on it, shoot us a message. We do get them here and we can respond to them live on the show. So next thing we're looking at, what do you think, Mike, is the most intriguing quarterback matchup of week 3?
I have 2 on this one. One good, one bad. The one, I got the Packers and Titans, because that's going to be interesting because you don't know what you're going to do with Will Levis. And Malik Willis, is he going to repeat what he did last week, right? So you got that interesting matchup. But as we touched on the Ravens-Cowboys game will be the most watched game because you got America's team with the 0-2 Ravens, and they're going to try to get out of that 0-2 slump.
For me, I'd say my most intriguing game, and this is where the fraud alert comes up. It's going to be the Saints and the Chiefs. That's a game for me. Saints and the Chiefs, right? And so
they're playing the Falcons.
Oh, Saints are playing the Falcons this week?
Yeah. No,
I thought they were playing the Chiefs. My God.
No, the Chiefs are playing the Falcons.
The Chiefs are playing. Oh,
yeah.
Excuse me. Look at guys. I just messed that up. So that's really going to be the Eagles.
Saints are playing the Eagles.
Saints and the Eagles. So that's going to be the game, and that's my fault. I messed up. You know what it was? I was watching the game last night, Falcons Eagles. Yeah. I got everything mixed up because I was trying to put this all together. But it's the same kind of thing because you got Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk Cousins just engineered another comeback. And so actually a guy I was talking to on one of my threads 4 hours before the game came out and played, he said, all Kirk's got to do is score 22 points to get his next upset. I was like, what? And then I watched the game and I was like, oh, he did exactly that. That was crazy. But so Kirk Cousins, he's pretty good on the comeback side of things. The Falcons are starting to look like a threatening team, and they've got some good parts there. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do against a defense like the Chiefs, because we know what the Chiefs bring to the table. And I want to see what Kirk Cousins is going to do when he's got Chris Jones in his face for 4 quarters, because to me, that's going to be a tell-all, right? You got to be able to compete against the AFC if you're going to win anything at the end of the day, right? We all know that. So that's my big game, but I really do like that Ravens and Cowboys one. That's probably going to be the game of the week this week, right? Mm-hmm. When is that a Sunday night?
Yeah, it's
Sunday or Monday night.
No, that's a Sunday. The Sunday night's the Chiefs game. So
okay,
it's a Sunday at like 5 for me.
I'm a little disappointed by that.
Yeah, it's not a primetime game. It is a primetime game for 5 o'clock, but maybe because they only have. You have the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Rams, and the Cardinals playing at the same time.
So who do you think right now, if we're looking at that game, and I'm going to take that next question that you got, and I'm going to focus it on that game specifically. Who do you think is the under the radar player on the Ravens or the Cowboys that could affect that game and really make it sway one way or the other? Because right now, if you're watching those teams, I don't know.
It's going to have to be Henry, because last week he only ran 50. If Henry runs a 100-yard game, then it's going to be a game changer.
Okay, I can see that. I think that, like, right, that's what you need out of him. Like, you don't need a 2,000-yard season, which would be fantastic, but a guy like Henry, you don't go get a guy like Henry for 40, 50 yards a game.
Yeah.
You get him for 100 yards a game and to put the ball across the line when you're in the red zone. You know? And if he's not doing both those things, then you've wasted half your money.
Yeah.
You know, so I can agree to that all the way. That's a really good one. I'm pretty excited about this game. I'm definitely not going to bet that game because who knows where that game, you know what I mean? Like, that could go anywhere. You know what I think is going to be interesting to see, and honestly, I'm not sure if he's going to get burned or not, but the Cowboys running game against against that Ravens defense, you know, the Cowboys need to establish a running game if they're going to have any hope. I think because that Ravens team is pretty solid at taking things out of the air. You know, and to me, I think you're right. I think that either way it goes, whether it's on the Ravens side or the Cowboys side, I think the running back is going to play a crucial role this week in kind of deciding where that game goes. So, you know, I can definitely agree to that one. That makes total sense. And this one, I'm gonna jump all over this question because this one's a fantasy question. This is an everything question. And a lot of people, I think, you know, they're probably thinking about this themselves at this point. How are week 3 or week 2, week 1 injuries going to impact week 3? For me, as a fantasy player, my starting running back is Joe Mixon. Okay. And, you know, we just saw one of those hit tackles fuck Joe Mixon up pretty badly last weekend, and now he's questionable. So we don't know where that's going to go. For me, not having Mixon in the backfield for CJ it's going to make a difference. No question about it. You know, when you have a guy like Mixon, who's that solid of a rusher, you know, it adds a whole threat. And when you remove that, puts a lot of added pressure on CJ. So to me, if that injury holds and he's questionable or out for this week, that's going to affect a lot of people. I mean, I'm going to have to run my Giants running back, Devin Singletary, this week if he's out. So, you know, who do you think, what injury to you that's happened is really going to, besides the most obvious one, Jordan Love? We know Jordan Love has affected his team greatly. But
I think we're missing a few. CMC still being out.
That's a huge one. But, well, so here's my thing about that is, what's this kid's name? Jordan Mason?
Yeah.
I mean, last game wasn't as dominant as the first game, but I mean, he's a solid running back, you know? He puts up yards, but he's not a game breaker like CMC.
Yeah.
So I can agree to that. And you know what else just happened today, I believe? Debo is also going to be out for them this week. Yeah. So I think the 49ers are going to be dealing with a lot. Their two game breaker, like studs, are both going to be off the field.
And remember what happened last year? They had CMC out and Debo out, and they lost 3 weeks in a row.
Right after all of the nonsense we dealt with in the offseason with Brandon Ayuk, if Debo is not there and CMC is not there, like I borderline demand that man has a 150-yard game. Like you want to get paid like you're a receiver one, then you need to come out and play like you're a receiver.
Show up. You got to show up. You got to take that double coverage. You got to take everything. You got to take everything.
He's been average at best through the first 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Average at best. So to me, that's probably, and that's a great one actually. And that makes total sense. I would go with that. Yeah. The 49ers, two huge injuries. And you're right. Last year, almost every game they lost last season was when the two of them were out. Yeah. They only lost, I think, one other game.
Yeah.
Right. So, or maybe two, right? I think they were 12-5. So I think they only lost like 2 other games in the season.
Yeah, but they had that 3-game stretch when they had those two guys out.
Yeah, that's huge, and for a lot of fantasy folks, I don't know enough about it. So what I'll do is I'll direct you to our buddy Tip. So if you guys are on X and you need some information, if you're looking at those injuries for your players and you don't know which way to go about it, check out our boy. It's at Tip Major on X. Man is a fantasy goat. He knows all that stuff. He'll give you all the waiver wires information, the best players available, and all that stuff. And he puts it out there for everybody for free every day. He just loves to share his knowledge of the sport. So definitely check him out, guys. That is an absolute great one right there. All right. And so moving right along, I think there's a lot of pressure on this question here. I like this question, actually. What coach is under the most pressure going into week 3? What do you think?
I know you're not going to like the answer, but Antonio Pierce. Because if he can't beat the Panthers.
Okay. You're okay. That is, yeah, you have to, yeah, I guess the Panthers have become that team. I'm not trying to throw shots here, but using baseball, the Panthers are like the White Sox of 2024. Yeah. So yeah, that is a lot of pressure. You got to know that you go out there. That's got to, in your mind, that's got to be a W already.
It's got to be a
right?
W, but your players got to play because you got. It's like a give me win, right? Because you got the redheaded stepchild thrown against you. So I mean,
you got to get your players focused. Guys, listen. I know this is supposed to be an easy game, but let's not walk out there and slack because this could be the trap game that sets us up the wrong way.
If Dalton wins this game, oh my God, it's just.
I mean, Andy's not terrible. He's just not good.
It's like saying Phillip Rivers is a top tier quarterback.
I got into this with somebody jumped onto one of my threads the other day about Eli and just put Phil greater than Eli, and I'm like, I can taste the saltiness on your breath, bro. Like, no, he's not. Like, I go by wins. You know what I mean? I go by the big W's, and my guy's got 2 Super Bowls. Your guy had 14-2 season, went to the playoffs, and lost in the first round more than once.
But I'll tell you, Eli's like Peyton the last 2 years. He was given rings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
defense, because his defense held it. Eli is great, but Peyton here, Eli's here.
Yeah. Listen, if Peyton or if Eli didn't have, speaking of Antonio Pierce, if he didn't have Antonio Pierce, Michael Strahan, if he didn't have the guys he had on that defense, he probably doesn't win a Super Bowl, right? Yeah. It's like our guy Trent Dilfer beating the Giants, right? Yeah. Guy's got a Super Bowl ring, but it's because he had a stellar defense.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to throw my real team into the hot seat this week because I think Giants fans have had about enough of Daboll and the shit that we're seeing on the field. I mean, the play calling is not right. It just doesn't look right, and somebody from Buffalo said it best. They said, enjoy him, take him. Yeah. He's going to come in year 1. He's going to ride off whatever the guys were already doing, claim that success. Then year 2, he's going to make no adjustments. Yeah. And then year 3, here you are. And so far, they're spot on. To me, Daboll needs to bring this team to success. Like, there's no reason to keep Daboll around if our team has another losing record this season. And going 0-3, like, he needs to come out of this week 1-2 if there's any hope in salvaging this season. You can't go into, we can't go into week 4 0-3. It's just,
Oh, you're gonna laugh now because you're talking about the Giants.
The Browns, yo.
I just had to do it just because.
Who's the quarterback? Who do you think should be the quarterback starting on that team this week?
Neither. Just neither. You might as well go pick up somebody. I do not trust Watson or Winston. I do not trust either of those guys to run that team.
To me at this point, like, I just think Watson does so little, right? And he's as a human being, he's a piece of garbage. So, like, to me, you just bench the piece of garbage, and just let your team know where you stand, right? Just put Winston out there because, like, fuck this guy.
You might as well go sign Tim Tebow back to a contract because it would just be as good.
Listen, Tim Tebow's a great American. He's not a great football player, but he's a great American. I see that guy doing stuff all the time, trying to help kids and do all the right things. Just not too much of an NFL career, and that's totally fine. But that, to me, those are a couple of the big ones. And then I think another one that's going to get called into question, the obvious one, right? Mike McCarthy. What you just had a historic blowout at home. Now, obviously, the team is a part of that too. So is the front office. But Mike's going to be on the hot seat, right? Because the team came out week 1, they looked good, but week 2 looked like they reverted back to the end of last season. Mm-hmm. And that's how the Eagles look too. So I think that the NFC East has I think 3 out of 4 coaches in the NFC East are all on the hot seat right now. Sirianni, McCarthy, and Daboll all need to get their shit together because, quite frankly, our conference or our division's a joke. No other way to say it.
Well, you look at the AFC North, where the Chiefs are now they're 2-0, and everybody else is 0-2. Like, Jesus.
And so, I think like that, the coaching thing, that's definitely a big one. And actually it's kind of funny because I actually answered your next question right here. What team desperately needs to prove itself going into week 3 after a slow start? The Giants, hands down. Like, it just, all the excuses, like, you don't have the excuses anymore. We used to say you didn't have a line, but these guys are blocking. We used to say he didn't have receivers. You have neighbors. You're
not going to fix it until you get rid of Daniel Jones. You're not going to fix that situation until you get rid of Daniel Jones.
You're right. And it sucks to say as a Giants fan. I tried hard to get on the DJ wagon, but it's just tough. I had people ask me after last week, do you feel better about having DJ? And I'm like, no, I don't. Like,
you might as well have the most New York guy. And I always say this, sorry with the little Trump-esque thing. But the most New York guy, Tommy DeVito. You got to have the most New York name to have the most New York quarterback. You might as well.
I said this, and I stand behind this, and I hope that maybe one day, they do this, exactly this. He's on our 53-man roster, right? He is quarterback 3. Tommy DeVito should never wear another jersey in the NFL besides the Giants.
Yeah.
I don't care if you give him the league minimum. You just keep him on the Giants until he's done and he goes start selling real estate or whatever else he does in Jersey. But that guy's a New York football Giant for life. That's it. Tommy,
he could be a Jet too. He could be a Jet.
I can understand that, but he's got a whole Giants vibe to him.
I know. He's got to stay in New York. He can't go in.
That's a fact. That's a whole fact, And then, kind of pressing right on from that point, the next big thing, those slow start teams are going to be the teams who really set somebody else up for that trap game. And so we did just talk about the biggest trap game ever, the Raiders, right? The Raiders need to win this week because what do you say to your team? Like, what happens when you walk into that locker room after losing to the Carolina Panthers? Like, that's demoralizing.
I'd say a bigger trap game is the Cardinals-Lions because you're expecting the Lions to be good, but now the Cardinals they elevated their game. So a lot of people are going to say the Lions got this, but now you got that Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison tandem, and it's connecting.
Yo, I was in so MHJ is my receiver 1 in fantasy. I was like, I don't care if this guy's a rookie. He's going to cook. I'm taking him, right? So I picked him up. I go on to my fantasy. Before I got to the game, I assumed the Rams would win that game. Assumed. I went on, and I'm like, he's got 2 touchdowns already?
Yeah.
What? Like, that is we already see this guy is a true game breaker. Like, I think that MHJ is good enough right now that if Kyler stays healthy for him this season, I fully believe he ends up this season as a top 5 receiver. Like, he's shockingly good for year one. I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know he was just going to cook everyone on the field.
But I think a lot of people are holding, like, the old guys like ourselves. A lot of people are holding Harrison because of his dad. I don't know if you ever heard the story about how his dad left the NFL, but that was completely horseshit. I understand the connection, but I completely believe it's horseshit how it happened.
Honestly, I can't say that I remember it offhand. If you want to jump in.
Off-season, there was a shooting that he was somewhat involved in, and he could never come back to the NFL because of the connection with the shooting.
It's crazy, it sucks because the kind of stuff that happens, right? And when he was in the NFL had more integrity. It did. Players had more integrity. And so just being connected to something like that meant you were cooked. You know, I think that, like, but, as a talent, Marvin's from Philly.
Marvin Harrison's from Philly. So apparently he went back to hang with the boys. Like, one of his boys had a connection with a gangbang or something. So somehow something popped off, and Marvin Harrison was guilty by association because he was a name.
Dude, Philly is the hood, man. Like, it's no joke out there. There's a lot that goes on in that city. Listen, I don't know about any other stadiums that do this, but in Philadelphia, the Vet had it, and Lincoln Financial definitely has it. They have a jail in the bottom of the stadium. People get arrested there and go right through, get their citation, go through court and everything, and then leave. Yeah. Like, and that's just because of the way that they get down there. I mean, as a New York guy, I've gone to so many games in Philadelphia and at our own stadium where Philly fans came into New York or into New Jersey and were just raucous, just problematic, So it's unfortunate, but that stuff does happen. But, I could definitely see why you would say that could be a trap game for sure, because as good as they have looked, or as good as they looked last week, right? Mm-hmm. Week 1, he only had 1 touch, right? And so you don't really know where it goes yet, but that game could definitely be a good one, no question about that. So that's a solid call on that one too. All right, moving right along. Let's see what we think here. Which game do you think will be I like this one. Which game do you think is going to be the highest scoring affair?
I have to think of really. I think Texans-Vikings.
Texans. Oh, that's a good one. That's actually a really good one. I wonder what I'm looking. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to look up pull up the schedule for this week. I want to see what the over/under is on that. Week 3.
It's only a 56 or a 44% chance on who goes which way. So it's not much. There's not much separation between them.
Where is Minnesota? Boom. There we go. Minnesota, Houston. The over/under is 45.5. I would almost definitely take the over on that. No question about it. And speaking of taking the over on it, just as a quick little plug here for our sponsors, I've got a couple of really great sponsors. First, if you want good bets every week, check out our Sunday Snooze You Lose pick by the Black Bookie Uncle Joe on We Like Sports with a Z, PC.com. And you can also check out his website, theblackbookie.com, and follow him on all socials. And then, of course, if you're a little bit heavy with the gambling and you want to get some of those extra credits for the bets that you make, then you could check out mybookie.com. And on MyBookie, if you put in sports with a Z as your promo code, you can get up to $1,000, right? If you bet 1,000, you can get 1,000 in credits to bet 2 free, right? And so those are a couple of our sponsors and great folks for the gambling side of things. So if you are looking at the over-under, I think that's a great call for a high-scoring game. I think another one that's going to be or should be pretty high scoring is going to be the Cowboys and the Ravens. I think that game's going to end up being most offense.
I don't know. I think that's going to come down to defense. I think defense is going to
It should.
Yeah.
Right. But all I'm going on is what I saw last week. I saw, one defense not show up at all. And I saw one defense fall apart in the second half, and if
the
those
Ravens
teams
have a better defense than the Saints, I would say that on paper. And if they could only put 19 on the Saints, they're definitely going to have a hard time putting 20 plus on the Ravens.
That you should be right. You should be right there. Honestly, the Cowboys, I think they were kind of like a favorite by a lot of people to win our division. And they're still very capable of doing so. No question. They're 1-1. It's not like they haven't won any games yet, but I don't know. I mean, what we saw last week was so far off that wasn't like hey, you go out and lose a game sometimes any given Sunday. Like they got shellacked. That was
also you gotta remember the $60 million was just fresh on Dak's head.
And to me, he showed up.
It took away the pressure. He was fighting for that 60, then given the 60, and he went like this. From week 1 to week 2, he dipped hard. After he got that 60, it's just like it dipped on him. I don't have to compete for this anymore because I got the money. Well, got the money.
I was a little surprised that they did it, to be honest, because at the end of the day, here's the thing, right? It's a business. They don't just do this for sports.
No.
And the guy wins so many games in the regular season that he's going to sell tickets, he's going to sell jerseys, right? And he's going to make them a ton of money. So they still made the deal. But if you're looking at it from we need to go break this long-standing no championships thing, then I just think that locking that guy into a contract, especially of that dollar amount, was a ridiculous move.
I think they had to do it because you either had to pay him or pay Lamb. So they figured if they pay Dak, Lamb would just kind of, and then maybe Lamb would, hold back a little bit.
I mean, they both got the bag, they got, that connection, realistically, if you're Jerry Jones, you want to see a record amount of touchdowns between those two guys this season.
Yeah,
I just guaranteed $100 million a year
on these two guys, and they couldn't even connect last week. That says a lot.
And I think it's kind of it's what's so scary about the way the NFL is now, because it's such a quarterback-centered league. Look what we did as the Giants. We went 9-8, got a wild card, won one playoff game, and we gave this kid $40 million a year. Yeah. Now, 2 years later, because everyone's making 55 and 60 million, it looks like a bargain. But is it really a bargain when you just can't win a game at all?
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Especially since he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns.
And he'll never live down the infamous toe stub when he was running and just dropped himself running down the field. He'll never outlive that. It's like the greatest GIF of all time. It's definitely a toughie right there. All right. And
Daniel Jones has no more touchdowns than Caleb Williams. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
And honestly, okay, so I'm glad you brought up Caleb. That's one to jump into. We saw so much movement on the Bears this season, right? The defense was supposed to be good, right? And they've been okay so far. The offense has all sorts of weapons.
But that's not where they needed to fix it. They need that O-line fix. Who cares how many wide receivers you can get? You can go get 5 new ones. Doesn't matter. If you don't fix that O-line, your offense is going to be crap.
And want to know why this is happening more and more? Because dial back 3 seasons, just the last few years, Joe Burrow was taking his team with one of the worst O-lines and 50 plus sacks a season, and he's bringing them to the AFC Championship and all the way into the playoffs. So other teams are like, well, maybe we can get away with it. But that shit doesn't work unless you have a certain kind of talent.
Yeah, you got to have the right system to do that. And Cincinnati exposed it because nobody expected it.
Yeah. the Browns are not the Bears. Unfortunately, it looks like right now, it looks like more of the same. Like, what are you doing to develop Caleb?
It's the same team.
Like, yeah, essentially.
Just $20 million cheaper.
You know, I expect to see, like, you know, you because of the way that I guess him and his father bargained in this offseason, and because of how he looked in the preseason, I just kind of thought he was going to come out slinging. But, you know, again, you've made a good point. When you have that kind of pressure consistently, it's very hard to. And in the preseason, teams are not going full burn at you for more than 2 drives.
Yeah, but my thing is Williams, and I've been saying it since he's been drafted. Williams held back. If you haven't seen the things about him, he only let the Bears look at everything. He didn't let everybody else look at him as a package. So he hated it from the rest of the league. So there's something about Williams that he doesn't want the rest of the league knowing about, and he's been exposed. And it's just going to go downhill from him because he's like a Jamarcus Russell. And I'll boldly say that. Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell hid an injury and then came out and goes, I just wanted the bag. That's all he's doing. He's just trying to secure the bag. He's not a top-tier quarterback, and I don't think he ever will be. Especially in Chicago.
I'll tell you what. I said this before the draft. I didn't think he should go 1.
No.
I thought Jaden Daniels should have went 1. But
I'll give you a weird twist on this. I thought Drake May should have went to Chicago and Caleb going to New England.
You know, I'll be honest. If Caleb had gone to New England, he would already be a better quarterback than he is.
Yeah. That's the Patriot system was perfect for Caleb. And Drake May was perfect for Chicago.
Drake's he's a weird one because, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I just didn't watch enough of him to think about it. I get it. He's a good quarterback. To me, the big quality for him is just he's just one of the most athletic human beings I've ever seen. Like, when you have that kind of athleticism, get it. But I don't know what he's gonna develop into. But I like the direction I think that the Patriots coaching is going. You know, and so I don't think that he's going to turn into a Mac Jones, you know, but I don't think that he's going to turn into Tom Brady.
Like they did Mac Jones. That's why.
Now, what do you think? Are there any adjustments that you think the Bears could make going into week 3 that would make them a bigger threat?
Keep him in the damn pocket. Because I seen him outside the pocket making bad throws and trying to roll back out and throw it. Stay in the pocket. Develop the pocket first before with that team instead of rolling out.
To me, that like so and like as an NFL fan for my life, growing up playing football, to me, that's like the biggest takeaway for like a lot of quarterbacks is they need to let pockets develop, you know? Yeah. Sometimes you need to step up into that pocket and just deliver, you know? Yeah. And you know what? Kind of an interesting one, but Sam Darnold has been doing that exceptionally.
Yeah.
As he's been in I couldn't believe how, like, I mean, and I still can't almost, but when I think back to how quickly Kirk Cousins became solid within that program, yeah. I guess it's not that shocking that they were able to just pull this out of him.
The reason why I say it, because a lot of people, because he got squished in Texas, right? Being in that pocket, because he doesn't have that O-line. But he has a hard, and he's got a quick throw. He can pull the Peyton and do the short game and do way better.
He's got really good mechanics.
He's trying to roll out and try to get those big arms. Do that later on when you got a lead.
Well, that's the thing, right? He has such a big arm that he's able to put those quick throws out, and they're like, you know, because he has a strong arm. Yeah. But they're using it effectively, and not just because they have Justin Jefferson, every pass isn't a deep route, you know?
No. I'm talking about Williams.
Oh,
Williams
okay.
Got a strong arm. He needs to just like the run pass option that I said, right? Just get out, toss, get out, toss. Just do it quickly. Just throw them off. Because when Caleb pulls back, he's waiting for that throw and he's setting his arm. And then by the time he's not even paying attention to what's around him. That's why he's got to develop that short game, pull it in the pocket and just toss it.
The Bears could take honestly, so, and you're saying that, right? The Bears could really take a huge page out of, right? Because this is the guy that they're, right? He's supposed to be a kind of guy who just be able to make plays and all this other jazz that they say. Great. But put him into a system. So like, think about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, 80% of his throws are under 20 yards.
Yeah.
He quick passes, boom, boom, but the ball gets out quick, he moves it, right? And then when he has to, he makes that, okay, and he adjusts. Yeah. Caleb's got to learn how to use that pocket to his advantage, make those quick throws. And then when that pressure comes and you see the collapse, now you've got to be able to take that and make the adjustment. Don't just go out and try and adjust for the fuck of it, though.
Yeah. We'll use the example of Peyton. First 5 years of Peyton, he had a big arm. Because everybody said that Peyton can't throw deep. So he kept trying to prove it. So it's the same concept. Basically, everybody knows he's got a big arm. He can throw deep. So they want to see those throws. That's what they're paying for. But then if you notice, when Peyton started doing the short game and that quick offense, that Colts offense just changed way over, and then it just start moving and moving and moving. And then people are like, oh God, what do we do? What do we do? That's why we call him the sheriff, because he owned that line.
Well, right. And so with that, exactly what really helped with that, right? So they had Marvin Harrison, but they had Reggie Wayne running those quick routes constantly, right? Yeah. And so having the ability to constantly dump off a 10-yard pass and knowing it's going to get caught. I mean, that's how you expose that deep ball, right? Because then they have to start playing closer.
And time management is key. You have the ball for 40 minutes. You're just, you're slowing down the offense because they want to get out there. But if Caleb keeps the ball there for a whole quarter, that's going to slow down the offense from the other side.
If you have the ball for a whole quarter, then you have to score.
Yeah.
Period. And that's the thing. They're not scoring necessarily. They'll just have the ball. And they burn, you burn half the game clock with no results.
Yeah. So if you want to get time management down. Perfect.
That's a fact. That's a huge one. No question about that. That for me, that's a big one. It's just it's tough. Like when you're in our age range, we grew up with running being a focus and watching the league turn into a West Coast offense, high flying quarterback center league. And I love it, but I feel like these teams are trying to churn and burn to find the right quarterback instead of going out, getting the right quarterback coach and learning to develop them within a right system. Don't just get any good quarterback and jam them into the system you have. If you go and get a talent that you call a, quote, generational talent, right? Then you have to develop fits that talent, right? You can't just run the same offense you were already running. Mm-hmm. We know it didn't work with the last quarterback who was supposed to be a stud. So you're just going to turn this kid into Justin Fields part 2? Makes no sense.
I'll say this though, and I do admire Pat Mahomes and what he's doing and all that stuff. Like he's going to be a guy to talk about for years, right? But one thing I think the NFL has to do is stop doing what Mahomes does, because you're not going to do what that kid does. He's a talent within his own self. What Mahomes can do, 90% of the other quarterbacks cannot do. And I saw Will Levis doing it. He thought he'd do the underhand throw, and the Jets turned it over. Stop pulling what Mahomes does. If Mahomes can do it, no one else can do that crap.
Yeah. That's a fair point. People want to replicate results.
Yeah.
But you can't replicate an individual and what they bring to the game, right? It's just, how many quarterbacks have we seen in the league in the last 20 years? Nobody's Tom Brady. Nobody's even close to resembling that. You know what I mean? Right? The next greatest quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, and he's a completely different animal than what Tom was.
Yeah.
So when you go and get somebody, you got to look at what you have, and you have to develop that. not develop them into what you want it to be. You got to know what, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's like one of the biggest mistakes we're seeing year in and year out with the Bears. They just keep trying to stick quarterbacks into what they're doing, not into what
the kid can do.
Yeah, they need to redevelop that whole offense.
Yeah. You got to
you're right.
You
starts
base
at the
wide receivers, you base around wide receivers, you base around the quarterback, you base around the quarterback. But they're like, well, we got the wide R's, we got the safeties, we got the quarterback. Where's your O line? Where's your D line? Like, you got to go across the board and fix everything, not just one thing.
You know, you're right about that. And like it, you know, and so this is what it's what's so upsetting to me about the Giants, right? Is that the Giants put a lot of work in this offseason. The defense, you know, we have a lot of good pieces on defense. We have a great D-line and interior. Our O-line is way better, giving up way less pressures. But when you fix everything, but now we don't have a general, now we have another problem, right? And so that Danny Jones thing, it just becomes the next issue is like, what do you do with that? And unfortunately, a lot of times you can't do anything. Ooh, okay. Reed for Deontay Johnson. So somebody just tapped in a few minutes ago, and they were asking about this is a fantasy question here. If you would make a trade for Reed for Deontay Johnson. Let me just confirm here. Hold on a second. Let me just ask them back. Which Reed are we talking about?
Yeah, you got to figure out which Reed.
Are we talking about here? Right? Let me see there. And I don't even, honestly, I'm not even going to lie. I really haven't paid too much attention to Deontay Johnson this season just because, I really haven't been watching the Steelers. So, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. Who is this? Or no, who is he on? Oh, is he on the Panthers now? He is. Oh, he's on the Panthers now. Okay, so then you know what? I can answer that question right away. I would almost definitely make the move and take Reed, just because at that point, Deontay Johnson, who's throwing him the ball?
Dalton.
Right? So if you have a receiver that can't get a connection, then what are you going to do with the guy? So, you know, at that point, if you have the option for that, I would probably go Reed, you know. Now, granted, I am not a fantasy goat like some of my boys. Like I said, check in with my boy Tip Major. Tip will definitely be able to give you some info. But if it was me, I would go Reed just because you can't trust who's throwing the ball. I mean, Dalton, what are we going to get from Dalton going into week 3? Right?
Yeah.
Who knows? You know what I mean? But you've got to imagine that the Raiders having a defensive-minded coach are going to be dialing up some wild plays to get at Dalton, right? You got to assume that. So for me, Deontay, you know, I would move him pretty quick if it's me. No question about it, you know. But I think everybody's got their own opinions on those kind of things. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Take that with a grain of salt. But for me, that's the direction I'd probably go. You know, and so we are coming up on our hour. Really quick, I did want to just transition away from the NFL real quick and just touch on my guy, Canelo. I cannot run a show and not talk about boxing, right? So hopefully everybody got to watch boxing last weekend. Probably didn't. That's fine. I'll tell you all about it. So like usual, there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of love for a guy like Canelo. I'm going to put it out there like this. For me, at least, one of the biggest things I would say when it comes to a guy like that, he's in the driver's seat, guys. So just stop hating on him. Oh, somebody just jumped in. Oh, my God. Sorry, people are throwing some comments up here. But you know, one of the biggest things that we saw this weekend is just that at this point, the man's going to do what he wants, right? Uh-huh. He's probably made $500 million fighting, right? Nobody's going to tell him which way to go. He's going to continue to pick and choose his opponents until he chooses to retire. So, folks, whether you love him or hate him, Canelo is still the man. He is the face of boxing. And it's just what it is. Now, with that being said, we do have a couple things over here. So real quick, it says, should I spend my number 2 wire on Quentin Johnston or save it? That's a tough one. Hold on. Give me a second here. We just put that question up so you guys can see it. What do you guys think about this? Quentin Johnston? I mean, let's see what he's looked like this season. Let me just get some stats here real quick. All right. Boom. Now, the reason I might consider him immediately, right? He's had 2 touchdowns already, right? 8 receptions for 89 yards. Not bad. But he's got a great quarterback delivering to him. So, if you could pick up a guy like that, I think there's only upside to him. He's an explosive wide receiver. I don't know if you remember watching him play at TCU. He was super exciting. If I had an opportunity to pick him up, I might do exactly that. So I think that Quentin Johnston would be a great pickup. And you got to think about it. The Chargers.
Yeah, he's playing the Chargers. I'd probably hold back because you got to see what the Chargers. That's going to be a hell of a D playing against, right? So you might get Johnson, but then he might not do well against the Chargers D.
Okay. Oh, well, and so you've got 2 answers there. Oh, hold on. Lamar or Olave for Chase? I think you have to go. Okay, so I think in this one, if I would go Olave. I mean, right? I don't know if you give up Lamar, right? You don't know where that guy could turn on at any moment and become everything. But Olave for Chase, if you can get that done, that's a great one, man. No question about that. But now I got one last question here I wanted to touch on from my guy. If you guys are on X, he goes by the Bold Coach. It's bold_coach. Oh, he's got great sports info on there. And he's got his own podcast too. He wants to know who we think the top QB pickup is out of Geno, Darnold, or Carr. What do you think?
I think Carr is going to slow down, quite honestly. I don't think it's going to be high offense for a while, like as much as people think it's going to be, because you got to look at their schedule. You guys, when you talk about these quarterbacks, you got to see who they're playing against and how well they played against them. Because right now they might have played 2 teams that were kind of they could get numbers against, but if they got the next couple weeks where they're playing against teams and systems that they can't play against, it might not be a good pickup. So that's the thing about fantasy. It's just like being an owner. It's like, okay, we got this guy. Do we put him in now? But then all of a sudden, week 3, 4, 5, and 6, he's against teams he never does well against. So you got to look at everything in fantasy.
And I agree with that. I think that Carr definitely slows down this season. I think Darnold is in the most secure position out of the 3 of those, just because Geno is in the NFC West, which can be a pretty tough division, and he's got to play the 49ers twice this season. So to me, I think Darnold's probably the safest bet.
He is that's because I find Darnell is in a system that he can produce.
And that he can excel in. And Geno, I'm also a West Virginia University graduate. So I love Geno. I think he's done awesome things for them, but I think that there are still some question marks around him. And I think he's got a lot of toughness and grit. But again, the point that you just made, Darnold has found his system, right? They finally found that match for him, and we see what he's doing, and that's only the start of the season, right? As him and Justin Jefferson start to really cook, who knows? The sky's the limit for that guy. So to me, that's the best option. And just because of the design of that offense, he gets rid of the ball before anyone else does. It's out of his hands the quickest, which means that he's likely he's taking less damage, because the play is moving up the field before he's taking the damage a lot of times. And so I think that's pretty huge for him. But for me, I think that that's an accurate one. I would go Darnold 2 on that. And just guys, last thing, we are coming up on 4:00. Sophie wants to say hi. Go Raiders Nation. Hey, baby. And I did want to give a shout out to our last sponsor of the day. If you are a gym rat like myself and like to have a little pick me up, there's a great pre-workout called Dubby. Dubby is one of our sponsors. And if you put in the We Like Sports promo code, that's sports with a Z, you can get a 10% discount on your next Dubby order. Check them out at Dubby.com. All right, guys, that's all I got today. And fellas, thanks for chiming in. I appreciate the questions today. Hopefully we'll get more of this stuff in the future. It's been an awesome show, and we'll see you next week on Vinny's Corner. Thanks for joining us today, Mike.
Thank you.